stereotypes? Yes?
Yeah.
Very stereotypical. We were taking notes. There are, how many of you in the class? About 25?
You know, I don't know how many are here today. They're usually, I think there were going to be 27 tonight. I don't know. You can just count them.
I'd like you to break up into small groups and do a little activity based on that video.
Why don't you guys just get into your groups that you're using for the project? That's easy enough. Oh, you are, I think, Avery, isn't Greg with you? I think I did. You have Kyle, you had an extra member. You were the one that Greg was in your group also. It's on the list. He wasn't here.
No, it was Kyle.
No, Kyle is in your group, I know, but Greg wasn't here. And I put him in your group too. No, Kyle's in your group too. You just have one extra person.
He's not here though.
He's not here today.
Oh, the business guy wasn't he in our group? He came like one day. Yeah, he's
No. It's Greg.
okay. You asked for
They're in groups. I think they're fine.
Okay. Stereotypes definitely enforced by that, but one of the things before that I wanted to address is the notion of political correctness. How politically correct was that?
Not at all.
Not at all? Why so?
They were kind of disrespectful a little bit to the culture. I mean, not knowing the difference between the Muslim, I don't know what the other guy was.
It was,
See,
yeah.
I think you're trying to put them together not knowing that their cultural background. So, and he was more aware. I don't think a teacher would have put them together, or tried to attempt to put them
But
together.
they were new though, so there was no way. Were they offended by that?
Yeah.
I think they were more offended by the proximity issue. But yes, you're right in one sense that yes, it was not politically correct there. Yes?
The lady was writing on the chalkboard, wasn't that just gibberish?
No, it was Urdu. She was actually speaking Hindi. I know nobody over
'Cause
here.
I didn't know, I thought like she was trying to write in Arabic or something and it looked just
Arabic
like
and Urdu have the same script.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't know what.
Yeah. So why is that politically incorrect though?
No, it's not, I thought she was just writing
Oh, no.
because she wasn't,
No, she actually didn't understand what he was asking her to do, and then she thought he wanted her to write her name out, because that was the only way. She didn't want to say it out, she wrote it out instead. Yeah, I think somebody else wanted to say something.
I just had a question. I don't think we all understand like what you mean by politically correct. Like, do you mean literally politically correct, or like?
No, culturally insensitive, you know, where you don't say certain things to certain people with the risk of, because you don't want to offend them. And I just wanted to say that there are different levels and definitions for that in different cultures. So what is offensive to one person from one culture may not necessarily be offensive within another group and another culture. It's also very context specific. And so that's something I want to make clear, that culture, there's an inside language that defines political correctness.
Do you think there's an element that since this was from the 70s or the
Yeah, this
80s?
was from the 70s.
Because it was from the 70s, is that either less politically correct for that time, or
This was
less
perfectly
politically correct?
acceptable for that time. There is an Indian version of this show that's shown even today. This show is still broadcast on national television in India. We don't think it's politically incorrect. We don't think it's culturally insensitive. This is why I wanted to bring up that this is the idea of political correctness and cultural sensitivity differs within a culture and from culture to culture. Yeah, go ahead.
So do you think, when talking about Americans, like we are all taking this class and we strive to maintain and gain greater cultural sensitivity.
Mhm.
If we're doing that and other cultures are not, where are we going to find ourselves? Are we going to always have to bridge the gap for cultural sensitivity, or is it eventually going to be mediated? Do you understand my question?
Yes, but you're asking me to make a prediction.
Well, okay. Well, what do you think?
My opinion on that is that, yes, Western cultures think more about these things, about being culturally sensitive, because they are more mixed. This classroom is more diverse than the one that I had in India. We were all Indians. Do you think we were that sensitive to each other? No. You're not sensitive maybe to your friends. You may say certain things that I may consider rude, that I may hear and consider rude even though you're not saying it to me. So to answer that question, one side has to make the first move to be sensitive, or you risk war, you risk conflict. And so on the basis of that, I'd like you to do a small exercise so that we can discuss this further. Here are some questions. Did somebody here want to say something? I asked the first one, so you can just say yes to that. I'd like you to pick 2 examples and say why you thought they were stereotypical. In what way, rather. And so on. Just a few points. Maybe take a few minutes, like 2 or 3 minutes. Just jot them down so that we can discuss them.
That was how they all were. But you went like this. Oh, yeah. Really had really yeah, that's why I should be Are you guys ready? Yeah, they are.
Okay. Examples of stereotypes. Excuse me. Yes.
Okay, so we said the French girl was like very seductive. Which is like a stereotype of the French, I guess.
Okay.
And then we had the Chinese woman who like, I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, let's call it traditional Chinese.
Yeah, traditional outfit, and the Japanese guy with like the bowing in his camera because they must take pictures.
Okay, so stereotypes exist. We all get that. And what do they serve to do? Are they good? Are they bad? Yes?
They kind of make broad generalizations, almost to make you judge somebody based on that. Like the Japanese guy works for an electronics company, they made TVs and stuff, and he had the camera, and he was real like proper bowing down all the time. And it kind of enforces generalization of a certain culture.
So is that good or bad?
That
Okay, we have one vote for bad. Yes?
I think they could be good because what you're just doing as a human being is trying to predict what the most likely next thing that person's going to do based on their appearance or action.
So expectations?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, somebody over there. Wasn't it? Yes.
So you know what to expect if you ever encounter somebody of different ethnicity, like with the Chinese man, he kept bowing. That stereotype of
Well, he was Japanese, but
Japanese,
yes.
sorry, Japanese. To be respectful, you know.
Yes, so
Yeah, we need a
you're saying
Japanese
good
man.
also.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
I mean, it's good to know about broad cultural structures that would play into behaviors, but I mean, as long as you just are aware that it's a stereotype and you, like there's a limit to that, and you leave room for individualization. I think
Very
it'd be
good. That is, you have to understand that stereotypes are very broad, and they do not factor individual differences amongst them. Did any of the characters display ethnocentric behavior? Well, you've already pointed out that one instance. So if anybody has another one? No? None? Yes.
Like, the woman from Germany was saying how Germany was the most efficient and they were better, and then she started fighting with Japan because they thought Japan was more efficient.
Yep, I agree. Go ahead.
Well, the second that the male teacher walked in the room, she was already talking about how women would be a better, they would hold a better position in the class as a teacher.
That's sexism.
Okay, that wouldn't go along with the ethnocentrism?
No, that's not necessarily, because they were both from the same culture.
Uh-huh.
So I wouldn't necessarily say, she was sexist, for sure. But it's not necessarily ethnocentric behavior. Yes?
The fact that they were all there to learn English, kind of superiority. It's a domination.
So that's the dominant culture though. They're looking to assimilate.
Yeah, there's a saying, their ethnocentric, we can judge that saying that England was the dominant nation, and we really don't know what's going on over there. A lot of people haven't been in England before, right? We're making judgments saying that they're the dominant nation.
True. This will open up a big debate. Because they're there to learn English because they want to live in England and they want to work there. It's like if I want to work in America, if I want to teach this class, I can't teach it in an Indian language. I have to learn English. So that's the opposing view on that. There are people who would say, yes, that is a form of imperialism, cultural imperialism as it's called, but it's not necessarily considered ethnocentric behavior because they're not imposing their culture. These people are voluntarily coming to learn. That housewife doesn't need to be there. She's coming in to learn English because she wants to learn it. Does that make sense? It's a volunteer thing rather than a forced thing. Yes?
I felt like that Spaniard, although he was in the class to learn English, like he didn't even speak a single English word, all he was speaking was in Spanish.
Yeah.
Is that ethnocentric?
No, he genuinely couldn't speak English, just like the Indian lady. Yes.
I don't know if we covered it yet, but could be the Muslim guy, and I don't know what the guy who sat behind him was. Either Indian, I believe. The guy from Pakistan.
Yeah.
And like just automatically, once he knew that he was a Muslim, he didn't want to sit next to him because, like, in there, I don't know.
Yes. The thing with that, there's a historical context behind that. That is definitely an example of ethnocentric behavior. But put any Indian and Pakistani together, there's going to be some amount of ribbing and, ethnocentric behavior going on. They may like each other, they may be friends. This series continues where they are friends, but that's definitely, it's like Americans and Canadians.
Is ethnocentric behavior ever a positive? Is it ever a good thing to have an ethnocentric perspective?
Stereotypes are maybe, they go into judging, and then the action of that leads to discrimination. So ethnocentrism could lead to discrimination.
But is there ever, I think we all understand, well, I don't know. I think there's a general understanding that ethnocentrism is a harmful aspect of intercultural communication. If we always think that we're the best, when I go to
but
France.
that's also the current thought in that. Was that always the thought? No, there was a point at which...
Well, do we know, is there ever a time now when we want an ethnocentric perspective? Does it do it? Can you guys think of any positives from it?
Could maybe be if you're trying to like convince someone to move here. You could be talking about
Why we're better?
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I mean, basically, yeah. But
there is a form of ethnocentrism that is considered somewhat positive. Political systems. Democracy is considered better than, say, communism. I'm treading a fine line here by talking about this, but it's true. One system is considered better than the other.
Was there a time, I was thinking of a time where a lot of my friends wanted to be a lot more worldly and international, very much rejecting U.S. ideals and U.S. values. They want, they all say, oh, we're leaving, I'm moving to France. I'm going to spend the rest of my life in somewhere else.
Yes, I think we've all seen people like that. I've seen them in my culture.
So is there any value to some level of ethnocentric belief where you think that you do have a lot to give?
Yes.
I mean, I feel like there's a difference between ethnocentrism and pride.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
you can feel pride for where you came from and, have a strong tie to where you came from, but that doesn't mean that you have to be,
I'm better than you.
I'm better than you.
Yeah. I agree. The final question. Did they have difficulty communicating with each other? In what way? Language. That's the main one, I would say. And that's why I showed you that. Show that language is one of the main vehicles for communication, miscommunication, and no communication. So, anything else besides language? Yes?
Were there some nonverbals, like when she said go to the right, or go to the left, and she pointed with his right hand?
Oh, but she said go right, and she used her right hand to gesture as well. Did you notice that? She said, oh, go left, and she pointed right like that. Which me, because I don't really have a sense of direction, that would really be confusing also. Yes, anybody? Did you want to say something?
Accents?
Accents are a barrier to communication? Maybe. They can be. Was there parts of that you didn't understand because of the accent?
Well, when very beginning when the professor wasn't understanding the guy that came into her office.
Oh, Ali, yeah. But I think that's also considered a part of language. do you have a lot of difficulty understanding me? I should have asked this question before. Okay. One of the main things I wanted to move into after this is the dimensions as laid down by Hofstede. There were examples in that video of these dimensions, and I want to talk a little bit about that because I think I'm in a position to give you some examples from real life there. Let's talk a little bit about power distances. How comfortable are you questioning authority? Like, for instance, the way he's sitting over there right now. So do you know what kind of a power distance culture you come from?
No, not really. Not really questioning your authority.
I know. It's just that when I was in college in India, if I sat like that, I'd get thrown out of class. It's considered a sign of disrespect. There is a whole sense of respecting the chair, respecting authority. Power distant cultures are those that respect hierarchies, that where equality is secondary to hierarchy. America is a low power distance country. Yes.
For example, assuming that we're all from the same culture in this room, as far as power distances, like the way he's sitting, because we're in almost two different generations. I don't have the same power distance as he does, but we're from the same culture.
No, culture is also about age. Culture is about your personal values. It is this idea of a collective nature as well as at a personal level. So culture is both collective and acquired. So it's individual and something that comes from being as a society. Yes, did somebody want to add anything? Yes.
I was just going to add, I don't know if we were looking at examples from the video, but the man from Japan,
yes,
he made sure, I think, that he was the last one to bow. Like, even though the teacher bowed one time, he bowed again after that.
yes.
I feel like if he bowed back, it would just been...
And that is one of the biggest examples in that video of power distances, because Japan also is a high power distance culture. He had to bow before he addressed the professor. It's almost like he had to take permission to speak up in the class. Yes?
And how they all would stand, or a lot of them would stand up when they weren't going to speak.
Yes, I still do that. Oops. I don't know how that happened, but I can't seem to get it back. Can you tell me what the next one was?
Masculine female orientation.
Yes. So let's talk about that. Masculine and female orientation is one that a lot of people have problems with when they consider Hofstede's dimensions. Can anybody tell me why? No? It's because it's impossible to categorize this in today's changing culture. Gender roles aren't as clearly defined as they used to be, say, 50 years ago. Boys go into occupations that were traditionally female-oriented. Women go into occupations that were male-dominated. So it is not possible these days to categorize a culture as much along masculine and female orientation. It is still possible to generalize, but not as much so. High and low tolerance for ambiguity or uncertainty avoidance. This is something I think we may want to discuss a little bit more. India has a very high tolerance for uncertainty. It makes us somewhat fatalistic. We're okay with not knowing what happens. We don't have a plan. We're very bad about keeping to time. Very bad. I'm only punctual today because she is. So it's something that's indicative of the culture. You see it every day. I'll give you another example from, I'll connect these a little bit after we discuss the next one. Does anybody have any examples to share about high and low context cultures? Did anybody understand it? Yes.
I was thinking about the time and how different people came in late, but they all seemed apologetic. So it seemed like they wanted to be on time and they just lost their way. So I don't know if that had to do with ambiguity, but.
Well, they were okay with that. The professor also seemed to be okay with that. Though England is not traditionally considered a culture with high ambiguity tolerance. Eastern cultures tend to be more tolerant of this. Except for Japan, it's not. Yes?
Didn't you ask about the high and low?
Yes.
I was just going to say, like, isn't the United States considered to be a low context culture because, like, when we say something, we are saying very straightforward and it's how we mean it to be perceived, as opposed to some other cultures would say something, but you're supposed to interpret it a different
Yes.
way.
In communication, in low context cultures, the burden of meaning falls on the person doing the communicating, the communicator. The burden of meaning falls on the listener in high context cultures. I'll give you an example involving me. I was told this, I never knew this about myself. I never say I'm hungry directly. I never tell a person that I'm hungry, I want to eat now. Instead, as I'm being driven along, I'll point out, what do you think about this restaurant? What do you think about that fast food place? Should we go here? It falls on the other person to understand that I'm hungry and I want to eat now. Because it's considered rude in my culture to just tell somebody, I'm hungry, I want something to eat right now. Because I'm not driving, I don't drive. So we don't speak directly. We don't make personal remarks. That's an example of a high context culture. And that is also an example of a barrier to communication. If the other person doesn't understand what I'm saying, I'm hungry. And I'm left feeling hungry until I finally get up the courage to say that. Okay, stop, now. All right? I'm just rushing through these, but I wanted to give you few things to think about. What are the factors affecting change in culture? Anybody? Just a few. These are just things that you can use later if you want to write a paper, if you want to do an assignment. Yes?
Maybe technology, like media, social media, things like that.
Technology, yes. Yes?
Kind of a roof above that would be just globalization.
You think globalization is affecting culture? In what way?
You're exposed to more different cultures.
So you're adopting things from other cultures?
Yes.
Okay. Thereby you're changing your individual culture. So which leads me to the next thing. Can changes in individual culture affect societal culture? If your personal culture changes, is that of your society going to change? Yes? Why so? I think it was you that said that.
Well, like if you, I don't know how to put this. Okay, so like, if you're trying to be like politically correct, I guess, like, it's been more of our generation that where like people express themselves more, like gay people. So I guess like, I'm not saying it's like a personal choice or anything, but like, that is like a personal thing that is growing in our culture, so it's being more widely accepted around our country. If that makes sense.
Yes. Yes. Because more people accept it, therefore it's changing. Yes. cultural paradigms, what I mean by this is, can you see any patterns developing in international relations, politics, based on these cultural paradigms? Conflict begins when some of these paradigms don't match between cultures. Collectivist versus individualist, then masculine versus feminine. These are ways in which conflict arises. Yes.
Well, like just, I'm in the military, so like females are always viewed like lower than the males, and now it's being opened up, like more combat jobs are being opened up to females, and like not a lot of males like that, and there's so many more restrictions for us still, so that's still like a barrier of entry for us.
Yes. Did you
Sorry, I'm gonna have to stop you.
Okay.
Sorry. I need just a few minutes with you guys. So thank you, but we only have 3 minutes left, and I think she did a wonderful job. Thank you very much. Just want to say, I know I have like 2 minutes, and I always end up keeping it longer. The ethnic theory of plane crashes. I just want to touch on it for 1 second. Did everyone read it? What did you guys think? Interesting. That's bland.
No,
I read the whole thing.
You read the whole, like 40 pages.
I mean, it really, the ambiguity thing, it made it tangible. I mean, as far as how one culture, because he didn't say it was an emergency or we were out of fuel, people died because of just.
So like all of these differences, the high context, low context, the ambiguity, tolerance for ambiguity, all of those things, suddenly, like, you could see a tangible application for understanding the differences. People's lives were lost because people didn't know how to communicate. So I think that, we're going to discuss that a little bit more next week, so please make sure you've read it. I hope you all enjoyed it. Anyone flying this weekend? When I was reading it actually when I was in Guatemala. And literally, our flight, it was the John Carroll students, our flight crew came in and they were like, no, we're not going. And they turned around and like left the airport and they were trying to like piece together a flight crew. I was like, no, we'll just take we'll take the next crew that knows how to work together. We're not getting on like a piece together flight crew. So like it was terrifying to me, but I think that it's very interesting about how all of these things interact. And you know, they do it on a basis that no one had ever thought about. Now every pilot has to have cultural training because you have to know who's going to be your co-pilot and who's not. And the airline industry as a whole implemented cultural training because of this. But I also think of how many other disasters or how many other people have died because of lack of cultural sensitivity. So we'll talk about it more. I know it's time for you guys to go, and I respect your time. But please start reading the next chapter. We are going to discuss ethnic theory of plane crashes, but then we're going to move right into chapter 3. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone that came in late, stop by.
I was wondering about it.
I like literally walking the door.
I used it. I don't think I got
Just
you.
woke up now.
I was at Frisbee.
Oh, he is that way. Yeah, so it's out.
I know.
Hey, Greg. Greg's a great guy. Got 4 more wheels.
Oh,
He told me, well, told me that's not like a
what's your name?
I have been.
You got me, right?
I got you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that trick, smiling next time.
Where's the guy cop too?
Oh, wow, you're good.